I was standing at this kitchen sink, scraping the last bit of salad dressing into a Tupperware, when Mom said it calm as you like she was reading off the weather. "We're out of oat milk again. Can you pick some up on your way home from work?" I didn't look up. I just pressed the lid down and asked, "Is this for you or for Lauren's hormones?" She didn't laugh. She never does when it's about Lauren. "It's for her tea," she said, folding the grocery list like it was a church bulletin. "She needs to relax before her flight." I paused. "What flight to Reykjavik? Didn't she tell you a beat? It's for her women's retreat." "Iceland. Cold air is good for resetting cortisol levels." The faucet kept running. My hands were wet. I turned around slowly. "She's going to Iceland." Mom blinked like I'd asked something odd. "Just a few days. Spa resort. It's all very holistic. She's been so stressed lately, Cassie." I stared at her. Iceland, spa, holistic, stressed. That was the word she used. Not irresponsible. Not unemployed for 19 months. Not the reason I've been covering the mortgage, the groceries, the phone plan, the utilities, and apparently now the oat milk for Icelandic hormonal balance. How's she paying for it? "She won it," Mom said quickly. "A raffle or something online." "Of course she did." "She won a retreat to Iceland in a raffle," I repeated. "Yes." A pause. "Don't sound so skeptical, Cassie. She deserves something good." I dried my hands slowly. The edge of the dish towel caught on my ring. "When I got promoted to team lead last year, you said congratulations and then asked if I could help with the water bill. That was your whole response." Mom's face tightened. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "It isn't." From the hallway, I heard the jingle of keys. Lauren breezed into the kitchen like it was her private runway. She was wearing the parka I gave her last Christmas. The one she said was too boring. She looked radiant. She opened the fridge. "Where's the oat milk?" I didn't answer. Mom handed her the folded list. "Cassie's picking some up." Lauren kissed her cheek. "Thanks, sis," she said without looking at me. Then she floated out the door just like that. I watched the door close behind her. The silence after felt heavier than before. "I thought she was broke," I said. "She needed the trip," Mom replied. "You don't understand how hard it's been for her staying home all day." I didn't argue. The sink was still running. I didn't turn it off. Because deep down, I knew something was off. Not just this trip, not just the oat milk. It had been off for a long time. I just didn't want to be the one to say it. Not yet, but that was about to change. The next day, I searched Retreat Iceland raffle just to see if it was a real thing. It wasn't. I wasn't surprised. I asked Mom about it again over dinner casually. She was reheating something frozen and pretending it was homemade the way she always did when she wanted to look like she was holding the household together. "So, what kind of raffle was it?" She blinked, then looked down at the microwave like it had just said something inappropriate. "Just a travel sweepstakes thing," she said. "You know how Lauren is with those online entries. She's always entering something." I took a bite of dry meatloaf and nodded slowly. Funny she didn't say anything. She usually brags about things like that. Mom gave me a look. "She probably didn't want to upset you. You've been working so hard lately." That was new. Concern. "I'm not upset," I said, and I wasn't. Just tired. Tired of being treated like the backup generator of the household. Always humming, always running, only noticed when something breaks. The next morning, the credit card company called. I was in a meeting when I saw the number flash across my phone. I let it ring twice, then answered something in me said I shouldn't wait. "This is Andrea from Goldline Credit." The woman said polite but firm. "We're calling to verify some activity on your account." I stepped out of the room. "What kind of activity?" "Multiple high-value transactions out of Reykjavik, Iceland," she said. "Luxury lodging spa services retail." "Just confirming you're traveling." I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "I'm not." A pause on her end. "Would you like to freeze the card?" "Yes," I said, immediately. $24,000. That's how much had been charged to my gold card in under 3 days. I scrolled through the itemized report she emailed me: boutique hotel, private tour, thermal spa, 4 restaurants, and something labeled Glacier Heli Excursion. I forwarded it to myself, then printed it at home. I left the pages on the table where Mom always read her paper. I didn't say anything. That evening, I came home to a strangely calm living room. Mom was folding laundry with extra purpose. Dad, who rarely spoke unless ESPN was on, cleared his throat. She didn't mean anything by it, he said. I waited. The card was just lying there. You always leave it out, Mom added. It's not like she stole it. I picked up the page from the table, held it up. $24,000 in 3 days. She thought it was expiring, Mom said quickly. She didn't want it to go to waste. I stared at her. She said that I asked. Mom hesitated, more or less. I didn't say another word, just picked up the paper and went upstairs. On the voicemail, Lauren's voice was chipper. Hey, sis, she said. Looks like the card stopped working. Can you fix that? I still need to book the ice cave tour. Love you. She hung up without waiting for a reply. I didn't tell them right away that the card was frozen. They found out the next morning when Lauren called from the hotel lobby. Mom was in the living room pouring her third coffee of the day. The mug said, Grateful Heart on the front. She says her card isn't working. Mom said, phone to her ear. I didn't look up from my laptop. No, it isn't. She blinked. You turned it off, I reported it stolen. I said calmly. Dad from his recliner. That seems excessive. She took it without asking, I replied. That's theft, last I checked. Mom's voice was tight. You always overreact. Lauren called again. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Seriously? You canceled it. I have things booked, Cass. That's incredibly immature. I was going to get you something. That last part, I don't know why that made me laugh. Maybe because it was said with such confidence. As if a t-shirt from a tourist shop justified $24,000 in unapproved charges. Later that day, Mom knocked on my bedroom door. She hadn't done that in years. We need to talk, she said. I shut the laptop. She stepped in and sat down like she still had authority in the room. She's stranded. She's in a 5-star hotel. She has no food money. She ordered truffle risotto last night. It's on the invoice. She's your sister. That again. That ever-reliable script. Family. Obligation. The eldest daughter as contingency plan. I sat up straighter. Do you remember when I was in college and got that stomach ulcer from working 3 part-time jobs? Mom looked uncomfortable. You're bringing that up now. I called you crying, I said. I needed help with a hospital bill. $2,000. Silence. You told me Lauren needed braces more. She pressed her hands together. That was a different time. It was always a different time. She looked older in that moment, not just tired, but exposed. Like the lines around her eyes weren't just from age, but from holding a mask too long. Then she did something I didn't expect. She reached over and put her hand on mine. I know we didn't always treat you fairly, she said. But right now, she really needs you. I didn't pull away, but I didn't nod either. I thought of the voicemail, the receipt, the way Lauren said, fix it, like I was tech support, not her sister. I thought about the day I turned 16 and they gave her a car and me a savings bond. I thought about the time she borrowed my rent money to start a business and then bought concert tickets. And I thought about the house, the deed in the drawer, the one Dad signed over to me 5 years ago when he couldn't cover the back taxes. The deal was simple. I pay, I own it. I thought about all of that and then I smiled. Okay, I said. Mom looked up surprised, relieved. You'll help. I stood and walked to the dresser, pulled open the top drawer and took out a different card. Black, clean, unused. This one's still active, I said, handing it to her. Book her whatever she needs. She took it like it was forgiveness, like the world was right again. I watched her leave the room, and then I picked up my phone and called someone I hadn't spoken to in a while. Grandma, I said, are you still looking for kitchen help at the cafe? The next few days were strangely quiet. Lauren's calls slowed down after the third voicemail. She'd moved from cheerful to annoyed to something that sounded like passive apology. She never said the word sorry, but there were enough sighs and drawn-out pauses to let me know she thought that counted. Mom started moving with a little more softness. Less commanding, more suggestion, like offering a cup of coffee when I came home. Like asking how work was but not waiting for the answer. And me, I smiled. I nodded. I said yes. I handed them a card. It wasn't the gold one. That one was gone dead buried. This one was black newer. It had been sitting in the back of my drawer for over a year. I'd gotten it after a client event never used it. I activated it, set a limit, and handed it over. She still has some things to cover, I said neutral. Flights, meals, whatever. Mom looked like she'd just been handed a second chance. She didn't ask why the card looked different. She didn't ask why I activated one I hadn't touched in months. She didn't ask anything. That was how I knew she was still playing her role, and that she thought I was still playing mine. Lauren texted the next night, cards working. "You're the best. I'm bringing back a surprise." I didn't answer. Instead, I packed 3 boxes and booked a moving service for the following Tuesday. Just clothes books, paperwork, the things that mattered. The rest could be replaced or forgotten. I called the realtor the next morning. Her name was Andrea. We'd met once at a networking event 3 years ago. She remembered me, asked how the house was holding up. I told her I was ready to let it go. She didn't need to know the rest, only that the deed was in my name, that I was the sole signatory, and that I'd be out by Friday. She said she had a buyer who'd been waiting on this block for months. We scheduled the walkthrough. In the garage, I found the copy of the tax transfer papers Dad had signed. I'd kept them in an old folder marked temporary. I never changed the label. Upstairs, I removed the framed family photo from the hallway, the one from Christmas 7 years ago. I'd been cropped at the edge, barely a shoulder. It used to bother me. Now it made sense. I was never really in the picture, just close enough to cast a shadow. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Not yet. I left the key under a rock in the garden for the moving crew. Marked the boxes kitchen documents don't lose. Then I drove to Grandma's. She opened the door like she'd been expecting me. No questions, just a nod and a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I have 3 rooms," she said, and no patience for nonsense. I smiled. Perfect. Inside, the house smelled like flour and tomatoes and old wood. The kitchen was loud clatter orders shouting in English and Spanish and something in between. Her cafe hadn't changed. Neither had her rules. "You ready?" she asked. "Not yet," I said, "but I will be." She wiped her hands on a towel and looked me in the eye. "They'll show up. When they do, I'll handle it." I know, and I did. They came back on a Thursday, mid-afternoon. Sky, half-cloud suitcase wheels dragging over the walkway like a warning. I was waiting. Not inside the house. On the porch swing. Lauren got out of the car, first, smiling like we were sisters who actually talked. "You came to pick us up." I didn't answer. Dad grabbed the bags. Mom reached for her keys. She tried the lock. Then again. She looked at me confused. "Did you change the door code?" "No," I said. "I changed the lock." She blinked. "Why, you don't live here anymore." She laughed that dry-clipped laugh she used when something made her uncomfortable. "Cassie, come on." I stood up slow, walked down the steps, and handed her a manila envelope. Inside, signed closing documents. Sale confirmation, wire transfer receipt. Andrea had worked fast. The buyers were moving in on Monday. "I sold it," I said. Lauren frowned. "Sold what?" "The house." Her face fell like a dropped plate. "You can't do that," she snapped. "That's illegal. This is Dad's house." Dad opened the envelope. His face went pale before he even reached the second page. "Cassie, you signed the deed to me 5 years ago," I said quiet. "Remember when the IRS came?" He opened his mouth, closed it, sat down on the curb like he needed air. Mom's voice sharpened. "You had no right." I looked at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't flinch. "I paid the back taxes. I've paid the mortgage, the bills, the maintenance, the repairs. For half a decade, I've kept this house standing. You just lived in it." Lauren stepped forward. "So, where are we supposed to go?" I handed her a second envelope. She opened it. Inside, an address, a set of keys, and a sticky note in Grandma's handwriting. "Room upstairs. Work starts at 6. Apron on by 5:45. Mom stared at the paper like it was written in code. "You sent our things to your grandmother's. I sent your things to your mother," I corrected. "And she agreed to take you in. As long as you pull your weight." Lauren scoffed. "You think she can tell me what to do? She's been doing it since before you were born." Dad finally spoke. "What about the card?" I turned to him. "Which one?" "The black one. The one we used." "Oh," I said. "That wasn't mine." Lauren stiffened. What? That card was yours, I said, meeting her eyes. You opened it 2 years ago, left it in a drawer when you quit that copywriting job. I never used it, she snapped. You did now. She looked at the paper in her hand, then back at me. You're lying. I didn't reply. The moving truck pulled into the driveway. The new owners stepped out, a couple with a baby and a dog, beaming. I turned back to my family. You have 3 days to vacate Grandma's guest rooms. Mom's mouth opened, closed. I didn't wait for what came next. I walked to my car, started the engine, and left. No speech, no last word. The house was already gone. So was I. It was quiet for a while after that. No calls, no voicemails, no late-night knocks on my door. Just peace. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy. 2 rooms, soft light, no shared walls. The kind of silence you don't realize you've missed until you finally get to keep it. Work picked up. I stopped checking my bank balance 3 times a day. I stopped flinching when the phone rang. I bought flowers for my own kitchen table, not because it was anyone's birthday, just because I liked the color. Then one morning, Grandma called. She never starts with small talk. They're adjusting, she said. I didn't ask who. Your mother scrubs pans slower than I'd like, but she's doing it. Your father learned how to fold napkins poorly. And your sister, she finally figured out how to clock in on time. I didn't say anything. Grandma sighed. They're not saints, but they're different. Some things can only be learned by sweat. That night I couldn't sleep, not from regret, just weight. The kind you don't realize you've been carrying until someone names it for you. The next week I stopped by the cafe, not to talk, just to see. The back door was propped open. The usual smells, garlic oil, yeast wrapped around me like a coat I hadn't worn in years. Through the kitchen window I saw them. Lauren wiping down Counter's hair, tied back sleeves rolled. Dad folding paper menus into neat stacks. Mom, hands in dishwater mouth, pressed into a line. None of them looked up. I didn't go inside. I just stood there watching, not with anger, not with pity, just clarity. They looked like people who were finally being asked to hold up their end, and for once, no one was reaching for my wallet. I walked back to my car. Later that week, I got a letter, handwritten. My name in careful cursive I hadn't seen since childhood. Inside one line, you were right. I just didn't want you to be. Mom. No apology, just that. It was enough. I folded it, slid it into a shoebox with a few other things I hadn't thrown out yet. An old photo, a birthday card from Grandma, the receipt for the back taxes I paid the year they nearly lost everything. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just closed the lid. Months passed. Seasons changed. Sometimes I'd hear about them secondhand through Grandma or a friend from church. Lauren got a second job. Dad fixed the cafe's leaky pipes. Mom started baking again. None of it made me feel anything big, just something small. Like, maybe... The ground had settled. One Sunday, I walked by the old house. New paint, new flowers, a tricycle in the driveway. I didn't stop, didn't slow down, because this wasn't a story about getting back what I lost. It was about leaving before I lost myself, and making sure no one ever erased me again. See.